Hello and welcome to No Soundbites Allowed, and for the first time in the history of No Soundbites Allowed, we have a guest host. Michael was foolish enough to let me host today's episode, and today we are joined by a very, very special guest on our 999th episode, introducing the one, the only, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier.
Hey,
guest starring on the No Soundbites Allowed. How are you, Michael?
I'm doing well. How is everybody?
Can't complain. And we decided to do this because you have your 1000th episode coming up. Is that correct?
That is correct. And by the way, you should tell people, who are you?
I'm John, the former intern for Michael Voss. I am former president of the College Republicans, and now I don't really know what I do now. I consult on campaigns, and I help Mike out whenever he needs to. I started out from the bottom, and now I've taken over Mike's show. So
Absolutely. I want to double check. John's not familiar with the system, and I'm always familiar with it. It's showing that on the bottom, it's showing record, and then it's showing a record.
It says stop recording.
No. Is it timer going?
Where would that be? Nope. Yes, it is. It is recording. Yeah.
Yep. Then it's going live.
Yep. We're live.
Oh yeah.
We're live on the air, and
silly little things that I worry about.
Right.
I've never handed the show over to anybody before, so and I'm trying to find it online as well.
Especially the former intern, but we decided to do it like this because I had the idea of I want to go back into Michael's past, look at some of his greatest moments, some of his lows, and everything in between, so maybe the audience can get to know you better. All week, I want to say Mike has plans for, other aspects to the show today, some other news.
I have a couple dozen. People don't realize how many things I go through to prepare for the show.
I want to let you know, I got over 50 questions from people to ask you directly.
50?
Yeah. So when I said I could ask you for hours, that we're going to cut it down to some of the better questions. But, Michael, tell us a little about yourself. How did you get involved in politics as a whole? That was the biggest question. How did you get involved in the first place, right? Like, you've been doing this now for over 20 years, right? Just about. Yeah.
Yeah. God, how did I get into this?
I already stumped him.
No, it's probably not as glamorous as people tend to think it is. I'm used to having my screens, so it's like weird for me. I don't have my screens in front of me.
I'm curious also how many questions are going to stump Mike, because we're going to go way back too.
Nothing will stump me. But
we'll see.
What I did, actually, the process to get to what I do now with politics, running for office, everything that I've done, it actually started pretty simple and in totally different direction. I was a stockbroker, and when I got out of being a stockbroker, this is in 2002, I started an investor relations company with a friend of mine. And in 2006, we were doing a lot of online component for a lot of our customers. And I heard about this thing called blogs, web blogs. No one really knew what that was. So I started investigating that, and we started off with a couple of very simple sites, which were basically a test. And in fact, my main site, mvoss.com, is the original test site for that company, where we were just saying, hey, let me see how this works, learn the technology. And from there, we grew into over 150 different blogs that I was maintaining, build, maintain, and add content to every day. I do about 10, 20 different pieces for each of the 150 blogs every day, which is a lot. Learn to write fast. And then from there, I left that company. Well, I came up here into upstate New York, into the Southern Tier region to help the business grow. It was a lot cheaper. And then I went and was covering a lot of the local events more and more. And as it so happened, there was the thing that really blossomed, because I was on and off with entertainment, more from a political standpoint than it was more entertainment. And like the NBA, whether or not the NBA players should be wearing suits or not. Kind of the idea of the content.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, God, that was a long time ago. But then the thing that really, and I was getting more and more political as we went, because that's a natural connection to economics. Mm-hmm. And then it was, I think, it was the ACA shooting, which is actually 9 blocks away from me. And I started covering that live, or as close to live as I could at the time, and went out and spoke with the mayor at the time. And
who was the mayor at the time?
Mayor Matt Ryan.
Okay. And
several other politicians and several members of the police force, and doing some investigation on that. And the studio's not soundproof, folks. Mm-hmm. And then from there, I just started really focusing on the local politics. And I was recognized by all of the parties. Actually, the Democratic Party was probably more fair to me in terms of giving me interviews than the Republican Party, believe it or not. And I'm a Republican.
Yeah.
And from there, everything grew from that.
Now, you said you're a Republican. Mm-hmm. Another big question I got asked, and this was more than once. I got asked by like 5 or 6 people, how did you become a Republican? Because by all means, the Democratic Party would say you shouldn't be a Republican.
Democratic Party curses me.
Yes, for being a Republican.
Yeah,
because you're not one of them. So how did that even happen? I mean, how do you go from, stockbroker to Republican? Were you always Republican? What's going on with that, Mike?
No, I actually wasn't. Actually, I was, when I first started off, early in my life, I grew up in a Democratic family, like a lot of people. You get the politics of your family. And most people don't pay attention to politics early on in life when I'm younger, and I didn't either, But when I got into the Marine Corps, which was 18, as I was getting out of high school, went into the Marine Corps, and a lot of people in the military are very conservative leaning. Being Hispanic as well as black, leaning more conservative. A lot of the views within the black community, within the Latino community, are naturally more conservative, more religion, more family-oriented. That's not something that we've seen in the Democratic Party. They've been moving away from that. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, that's the core of those values. But yet we were still considered Republicans for some reason. Democrats for some reason. Mm-hmm. And went to college, very liberal, Rutgers University, so liberal that they're now getting rid of English, and they're accepting Ebonics, which is just absolutely mind-numbing to me, and makes me want to rescind and never mention the fact that I went to Rutgers, because it's so stupid. The English department should be ashamed of themselves. Yeah, I'm mixing in some current politics in this.
Yes.
But so as I went through my life, and then I went overseas to Moscow, and I tell you, if there's anything that puts into clear perspective what are your political values, what are your core values of your life, well, probably the easiest thing to find out is live in a socialist nation. And you can't get too much more socialist than the former Soviet Union. I was in Moscow, lived there for a year and a half. I watched the coup attempt. I watched the civil war start in Soviet Georgia. And I tell you, if you want to see something that's going to make you say, I appreciate and love America for all the faults that we have, because of the freedoms that we have and the quality of life that we have, that everyone in the world is jealous of, yeah, do that. And I ask this often of a lot of people, who say, oh, I love socialism, I believe in socialism, all those guys. And I always love to ask them, have you ever lived in a socialist nation? I mean, not like a visit for a week, a guided tour because you're a special
where they hide
guest.
It off, yeah.
Yeah, and they give you the highlights of it all. Mm-hmm. I mean, live day in, day out like a regular person there, speaking Russian, spending rubles and just living with everybody, although better because I was considered to be very rich in that country, which was a fun experience. But even so, living there every day, and I tell you what, you do that every day, I've never heard anyone who comes from a socialist nation and says, oh, no, I want America to be more like what I left. And there's a good reason for it. So, you want to see, why am I so conservative? Why am I such a Republican? Because I've seen the alternative, and the alternative doesn't work. They promise it does. They got a good slogan. It just doesn't work. Ever.
Did you ever think that you'd hit 1,000 videos?
Absolutely not. And that was never even a concept. It
No,
was
I don't imagine it was.
never a concept. Believe it or not, this is actually, No Soundbites Allowed is my second channel. I had a YouTube channel before this.
Right.
Somewhere between 2006 and 2010, I had a channel up, and it was a mix of political and entertainment content, because people were still figuring out this YouTube thing and trying to figure out.
This was when YouTube had the star ratings for videos, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, this was when YouTube.
It was
really
way,
old,
way back.
Really old, yes.
And one content strike could wipe out your channel, and it did. It was a very different creature back then. Mm-hmm. And when I started that, and so I don't know, I had maybe 100, 200 videos up at that point. And YouTube, I got a content strike. I think it was one of the news organizations, CNN or someone like that, decided that they didn't like the amount of content I had on some story. I don't even remember what it was. And so YouTube wiped out the entire channel. All 200 videos gone in an instant. Didn't get to save anything, didn't get a warning, just strike, it's gone. And so then I started over.
Yeah. And that's where No Soundbites Allowed came in.
Eventually, yeah, that's what it evolved. I found my voice in the channel and what I like to do, and it just kept growing and doing it as much as I possibly can.
Absolutely. And another question we had, and this kind of ties into it. I mean, you didn't think you'd go to 1,000 episodes of No Soundbites Allowed. You thought of this probably as a hobby at first, or
Side gig,
yeah.
fun thing to do.
Yeah, just a little thing to do on the side, right? Was there a moment or an interview that you kind of clicked with you, like, this is real, this is it? Was there a first interview that you can think of, like, being like, oh my God, this is real for me? Or has it always just been like, I could always get interviews? Told you I'd stump him.
No, it's not stump. I never took it as, oh my God, this is going to be my career. Or this is going to be something that's going to catapult me into all the search engines in the world or anything like that. That I was going to get hired by Fox News or Breitbart or Daily Caller or something like that. That was never, I've been doing it 10 years.
Yeah.
And I didn't get the instant fame. I didn't, I've always, there's been times where I've wondered, like, I've got a lot of videos. I've got hundreds of thousands of views. Why am I not, and people love the work that I do. Why doesn't it catch? Well, and I came to the understanding a long time ago, watching the cycle of when people pay attention, when they don't. No one likes politics. People watch politics because it's on the major news stations, but no one really likes it.
You get it. You get it. Like, you understand. You've cracked the code, because I tell people all the time, stop caring.
Well, no, I care, and
Yeah.
and there is a core group of political junkies out there. Thank God for each and every one of them, especially the ones that watch me. Thank you very much. But the average person, if you walk down the street and ask someone about Rutgers and the English language, if you ask them about how many people have been killed by BLM since June. There's the guy in Minnesota. They just found his body in that.
We actually have that story up.
The guy was found in one of the liquor stores was burned down in Minneapolis at the very beginning of the George Floyd protests, or actually riots. They weren't protests because they were violent. And we just found out earlier in the week, they had a body in there. So BLM burned down a building with a guy in there and potentially killed him.
Right.
We don't know if he was dead before or not. So potentially killed him. There's the 19-year-old and the 16-year-old at the Seattle Chaz, the autonomous zone. There's the 8-year-old that was killed over at in Atlanta because of Rayshard Brooks. We ask a person walking down the street and say, did you know that people were killed? Well, and I can't leave out Jessie Dottie Whitaker, killed because she said all lives matter. If you ask the average person walking down the street and say, did you know any of this happened? They're like, that didn't happen. What do you mean? It didn't happen. How do you know? Because CNN and MSNBC didn't put it out there. Yeah, it happened anyway. The local news media covered it.
Just because the mainstream doesn't cover it doesn't mean it doesn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, local news stations covered it. People have been talking about it locally. And so it's important to do it, even if no one is out there saying, oh, here's some fame for it, here's money for it. No, I lose money. I do it because I love it, and because I think it's important to tell people about those things.
And you know what? That's originally what, going way back to when I met you. First thing that I noticed, it was me and you. We went to a Mark Molinaro. We talked about
Mark Molinaro.
Ran for Republican governor about 3 years ago now.
4.
Okay.
Almost.
Four. Just about that time. Around then, and I was talking to Mike about this the other day. The first time I met Mike, I came up in a Ted Cruz hat. Right? And the first words out of Mike's mouth were laughing at me for wearing a Ted Cruz hat.
Yes.
The first thing out of Mike's, and I was like,
what are you wearing that for?
I know. And it was the most funny and surreal moment. And from there, you did your first real speaking event at Binghamton University, correct? Or had you done one previously, maybe?
I've done speaking events for, actually, since 2010. My first speaking event, large, as politics. I've done speaking events before in regards to economics, stockbrokering, the stock market, and educating people about finances and investing, which I think is an important thing because just like politics, people just don't know. And it hurts them financially throughout their lives. But when you look at my first speaking event was actually I got invited by the Tea Party.
Oh, okay.
The local Tea Party. We're having a rally.
What year was this?
2010.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was one of the few early videos I had, and also pushed me more towards politics because I was really surprised, didn't expect it.
No.
And I got to be one of the main speakers. I wasn't running for any elected office.
We'll get into that later. Yeah. I want to ask you some of the questions about that, but
sure. I wasn't in any. I wasn't running for an elected office. I wasn't in the political parties. I was outside of all of that, and they found value in what I've been saying, and said, "Hey, come on out, and we're gonna have you speak." I thought it was a pretty good speech. Stage fright wasn't too bad. I do get stage fright. A lot of people don't realize that.
I don't believe that, but okay.
No, I do. As many times as I've spoken, I think the largest crowd I've ever spoken to was about 2,000 people. Smallest is probably 5. But
I remember the 5, yes.
Yeah, regardless of the size, though, for me, it's always that first 30 seconds. It's a lot of stars have it. Barbra Streisand is one of the probably better known ones. It's that first 30 seconds for me of coming out and actually having to talk to that crowd and just, oh my God, it's going to go all bad. Something's going to screw up. I just don't know what I'm going to say, even though I know what I'm going to say, because I don't usually use script. I hate reading a speech. I'm not very good at that. I'm good at just talking.
I've noticed that, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and we invited you to Liberty Weekend, I remember. That was the first real connection I had with Mike.
And Larry was there.
Yep, Larry Sharp was there, and we got a couple speakers, and Mike was one of the headliners because I knew at the time I'd seen some of his videos. Not many. Now I have to see every single video Mike puts out now. It's part of the rules. Mike will text me literally like 10 minutes after it airs. Did you see this? I'm at work. I plan on watching it tonight, though. Yeah. So I see all of Mike's videos, though.
Well, I like to make sure that I'm being consistent and good.
Absolutely. But I remember asking you, I'm like, I want you to talk about the issue that isn't being discussed by anyone else in the news media, red flag laws.
Oh, yeah. And I'm a major proponent of the Second Amendment, and I'm totally against the red flag laws.
Exactly.
It's I was actually, a lot of people have heard Larry Sharp talk about how it's going to take away your kids, the red flag laws. And the person who actually told him about that was me. Because no one, I've talked to lawyers, I brought it up to some of the politicians who actually voted on it, a bunch of the assembly members. who voted on it and voted for it, in fact.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked them about, why did you vote for this? I'm like, here's the scenario that you will lose your kids because of the red flag laws. And they were like, well, yeah, it's true. I'm like, I know it's true. I've talked to 4 different attorneys in 3 different states about this, trying to figure it out. And I'm like, why'd you vote for that? And the answer I got was, well, I know it's flawed, but I think they're going to fix it. And the answer is they never fixed it, and people are losing their kids because of it.
Yeah. You always seem to be ahead of the curve, at least for me when I first started meeting you and talking with you. And I remember you invited me on the show. Mm-hmm. Great show. And after that, I became your intern. Quick plug, mm-hmm. Michael does accept interns on No Soundbites Allowed if you're in the area and looking for an internship.
And you want to work.
Yes, you have to work. Yes, and that is one of the best things that I can say about working with Mike. He teaches you to think about issues in such a different way and flips it on its head. It is the best. If you plan on going into politics and you plan on going to D.C., best advice is working with Michael Voss here if you're local. That's just a plug for me. And also, quick reminder to hit that subscribe button.
Yeah. But thank you for that. And I do appreciate that. But yeah, I believe it and something a lot of people should know.
Yes.
I've never told anyone to write about anything, and I've never told anyone.
That is correct. You let people come to their own conclusions about it, and you'll publish it. Democrats, Republicans, doesn't matter. It's that looking at things differently, which is just why the internship works so well, at least for me. And I was your intern for, 6 months?
A little bit longer, yeah.
7 months? Mm-hmm. Right. I was writing for Mike, I was doing all this stuff, and I really got to go behind the scenes and get to know him good. And from there...
Yeah, I'm not the nicest boss, I imagine.
Well, no, honestly, you were the most real boss. You tore into my writing, thank God. You helped me become a better writer. You're not going to get that experience from anyone else, and you're not going to see politics the way that you do without it. And I think it's such an advantage to working with you. There were times that you stressed me out once in a while.
I probably do that to a lot of people.
Yes, yes, very much so. But, it was a great internship. I remember working for you, and I loved it every single day, going on the show, being an intern, learning, just hanging out, talking politics with Mike. Such a good experience. And I was then chapter president of the College Republicans. I'd taken it over that summer. And one of the things that I wanted to do was to get a panel together, and this was probably one of my favorite Mike moments. Mike did the Case Against Socialism panel. We promoted that. That was with Morgan Zeggers, George mm-hmm. Phillips, and you. Mm-hmm. And I remember, and this is why I don't believe you have stage fright. You walked into the room. Yeah. You had the Mike Voss swagger, of course. You have a specific walk that you do, where you kind of come in and you're like, and you screamed, "I'm excited," seeing about 60, 70 people in that room.
Oh, I love that.
I know you do. So that's why I just am so shocked at your stage fright. But
no, it's a real thing. I don't know if we're going out live.
Are we not?
It seems not.
It says we're live.
Okay. It could be Facebook and YouTube messing with me. They do that.
Yep. No, I'm seeing it live in the corner.
Okay.
A little ball with the...
In case people were wondering, why do I look down? I'm trying to find it live. I'm not seeing it. But that's all right.
It's definitely recorded.
The anti-socialism event was a great event because it was one of the few opportunities at a college university where I got to actually talk to kids, younger students, and say, hey, let's really evaluate this socialism thing. Let's talk about something that you don't get to hear, actual facts. Here's some realities.
Right.
Here's real world experience about what you've seen in dealing with socialism. Mm-hmm. Because no one ever talks about that. I mean, everybody who says it. You listen to the Black Lives Matters people. You listen to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I mean, the closest you get is Bernie Sanders, and he was given a guided tour. He was a special guest of the state. So he didn't get to live over in the dachas like I did. He didn't have to go to the stores and see them empty 28 days out of the month. He never had to deal with that. But I saw it. He didn't have to wait 3 hours in a 5-hour-long bread line to get bread, because if you didn't, you weren't getting bread. Or going to the McDonald's didn't exist then. So he never got to see. I have literally seen an 8 to 12 hour long line. I mean a line that goes around blocks, not a block, blocks. We're talking New York City blocks, just to be able to walk into McDonald's. This is a family's entire vacation fund built up over a couple of years to walk into one McDonald's because it's the only one in the nation. And they spent 3 days on a train to get there, to wait on an 8-hour line, to get a Big Mac and fries, and then go back on a train 3 days back the other way to go back home, just so they could have that experience. You know what? There's a reality. Could you imagine waiting in an 8-hour line for anything in America?
Yeah, I can't. I get mad at Disney World because I have to wait, and that's with the speed pass. So
There you go.
Yeah, exactly. And it kind of goes into one of the questions that people ask me about you. And at, the case against socialism, you had a lot of kids come up to you and ask you questions. A lot of students wanted to hear from you. And
I love that.
Yeah.
I love
Absolutely.
being asked questions. I think I was there twice as long for the question and answer period that I was for actually speaking.
Yes. No, and people loved it. And people even came up to me. They were like, I just talked to Michael Voss. And I'm like, yeah, what'd he say? Well, he seemed to be, I tried to debate him and I lost, or some of the things. Or, I agreed with all his points except this one. And he's very much set in stone. He knows how to talk. I'm like, yeah, that's Mike.
Well,
Very stubborn sometimes.
That's not entirely true. I think a lot of people are surprised by this when they get a chance to speak to me. And whenever I do a speaking engagement, I always stay after. And I'm willing to say I've stayed some of these things hours longer than my speech.
Yes, I know. I drive you. I usually have to drive you home.
Some of the others I've done too. But I do that in all of them. And the thing is, one of the things I think a lot of people find out once they actually talk to me, I'm not some kind of fire and brimstone kind of guy. I mean, people know me in the local region, whether I'm in a store or in a bar or a restaurant, and people will come up and say, hey, I want to ask you about this. Okay, fantastic. People know that I know a lot of these things. So they'll stop and they'll talk with me. And I have a very simple rule. If you're asking me about an issue, I will give you all the information I know so you can look it up for yourself. Mm-hmm. If you ask me my opinion about it, well, now I'm going to give you my opinion.
Yep.
My opinion's a lot stronger. I'm very hard in the wording sometimes, but I'm also very fair. I'm never going to tell someone you're wrong just because you have a different view, and I'm not going to tell you that, you're evil because you have a different view. I'm very surprised that I actually have a conversation. And it's like, okay, I'm not going to be offended. Tell me why you think that. I don't have to agree with it, and you don't have to agree with me.
Yeah.
But I do want to hear it. And when people do that, they're actually surprised. It's like, okay, well, tell me. I've got a lot of friends who love to just go, Mike, I heard about this. I think you're on the wrong side of it. Oh, why? Let me hear your details. The one thing I don't like is, because I feel it. Well, I don't care. That I don't care. If you don't feel I'm right, well, too bad for you. I don't care. But if I've gotten something factually wrong, or if I didn't have information to judge something on, that makes a big difference.
Mm-hmm. No. And the question I repeatedly got that I was going to get to was, what do you think was the greatest influence or the greatest person, whether it be a book, a person, a show, to developing your politics to what they are now?
My politics?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because
I thought it was going to be my life. Okay.
No. Young people want to know what influenced your politics a lot. What book, what person, who should they be reading and looking out for?
Read everything. Literally. I think it's the same answer I give for someone who says, I don't know anything about investing. Great. Get the Wall Street Journal every day for 30 days. At the end of 30 days, you will be caught up to what's going on in economics today. Read it beginning first, cover to cover. You're going to read the whole thing. And you're going to know everything that's going on. And at the end of 30 days, you are up to the current economic cycle. And you will have learned, have a dictionary or a thesaurus next to you. Mm-hmm. Any word you don't know, look it up. That's how you learn. Figure out what that word means or what it means in that context, whether it's financial or political. And then, okay, now I know what that is. And you'll be amazed. Once you understand the fundamentals of what's going on, what is it about, then you can go forward and start making intelligent decisions. Same thing in politics. You read, the thing with politics is you need a little bit more than, say, with just the Wall Street Journal. New York Times, BBC News, Israeli Times, Washington Post, Fox News, Breitbart, Daily Caller, Huffington Post. These are just a couple of people right off the top of my head. I read them all the time. I constantly read everything that's going on. I watch Twitter. I actually put a lot more time into this than most people. I do probably 8 hours a day on average reading.
Can confirm.
Everything that's going on.
I can confirm that, yes.
But in doing that, okay, I have a very good hold of all the sides. I'm not relying on any one person because I can tell you, I can point it out on almost any story. New York Times, Washington Post, Daily Caller, and Fox News will all cover the same story, and I will get 3 different sections of their quotes and get a different story altogether. If you just piece it all together and go, okay, you left out the beginning of the quote, you left out the end of the quote, you used half of the quote, everyone's putting it in different context. We put it together and it's like, oh, that's what it means. Or what I like to do a lot, especially since for some reason our news media hates to tell people, ooh, we have a bill that's going out and it's going to do X, Y, Z. Mm-hmm. Okay, what's the name of the bill? Oh, you don't need to know that. What the bill does is, well, no, that's your interpretation. How about you tell me what the bill is? I can read the actual words, and then if I have a question, I can ask someone for clarification. So I love to do that and look it up, and I've figured out, and it's not that hard, really. You just need to know where to look, and that's not hard to figure out. And say, okay, here's what the actual bill says. This is what it actually does. Not someone's take on what it could do, but what it says it is going to do. So those are, so when I say read everything, I mean learn for yourself from first-hand sources if possible, multiple news sources when it's not possible, to get a good understanding. But if you said, what about classical literature or anything like that? Sun Tzu, The Art of War, critical. The Book of Five Rings, critical. The Once and Future King by T.H. White. Massive. Very important. A lot of people overlook that. It's incredibly good book. It stuck with me. I first read that back when I went to City College of New York instead of high school. My last year of high school, I didn't go to high school. I went to college. And there was this program, an advanced program, whatever. And so I had an English professor who wanted us to learn a lot of stuff, like Achebe, Things Fall Apart, which I hate that book. But it was good to read. I hate it. But T.H. White, he introduced me to T.H. White and that book, and I thought was very, very instrumental. Also, I would probably go with Isaac Asimov's Robot series.
The iRobot series?
Yeah, which was bastardized by Will Smith. It was horrible.
That was a really bad film. I can confirm
Horrendous.
that. Can confirm. I prefer Android's Dream of Electric Sheep, but...
Philip K. Dick,
yes.
Great writer as well, and yes, that's also a very good book.
Yes. Now, you talked about first-hand sources. Nothing better for a first-hand source than an interview, and you've done a lot of interviews.
Yeah,
Do you have you've done 999 episodes now. Mm-hmm. You've done a lot of interviews. Do you have a favorite interview you've done over the years that you can look back on and go, yeah, that's my favorite by far?
Everyone brings something different when they get an interview. And the thing I love about interviews is you don't know where it's going to go. I don't tell people the questions before I do an interview, ever.
Which is one of the reasons I like that, yes.
And I do a lot of research beforehand so that I know something about this person before I get into the interview. And often they're surprised, like I find little things. But that's part of... Oh, nope. Oh, that's you.
607?
Oh, someone's calling in.
Yep.
You know how to answer it, right?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, one moment.
They should be in on live. The board's live.
Yep. Does it work?
Hey, are you going to be going live today?
I am live.
Yep.
You are live. I don't even see... I don't see it right now.
Hang on one second, folks. Let me see. Keep going.
Yeah.
Talking.
Yep. No,
Jason
we're
from
checking
Bang.
this right now.
Yeah, I'm
No?
checking the YouTube, and I don't see
it's
anything
going
on
live.
there.
It's supposed to be live. Yep.
Nope, that's YouTube blocking us.
Yep. YouTube's just blocking us. Yep. We're still going. Do you have a question for Michael or anything?
Well, yeah, I actually was calling Michael to ask him if he was going live.
So, just so people know what's going on, hang on. This is Jason from Bing. He's a caller to the show, and I love it. Jason, what we were doing, because this is the 999th show, we were doing it a little different because I'm being interviewed, in fact. And it was supposed to be going out live, but the system's up, and for some reason, YouTube's not putting it out there, and I tested it beforehand. It should be fine. But, and so he's asking me about life in general and some of the things that are going on. And so you're listening to John Rastusha. He's actually hosting the show.
Yep.
Don't worry, the video will be out of this. It should have been, but I apologize, it wasn't live.
Yeah, you're breaking up on my end too. I hear you kind of very light as well. But are you on? Did you put it out on Facebook as well too?
Supposed to be, but I didn't see it there. And it's not us, it's the system. I don't know what's going on.
Okay. Yeah, honestly, I'm almost wondering whether your feed's coming through. Maybe your internet. I don't know. All right. I guess I'll try to see if I can find you on another platform then.
If not, it should be out shortly. Which is
All right.
a little disappointing, I know.
Yeah, but thanks for the call and thanks for checking that out for us. We were wondering about that.
Yeah, nothing here on YouTube. So
Yeah.
all right.
Yep,
I'll see you. All right.
Bye.
All right. Well, we know that people aren't seeing this live now. So it's one of the problems with the technology sometimes.
Told you, it said it was recording, and it says it's live, but
System's
you
up.
know what? We're going to keep going.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. We're going to keep on going. What were you discussing previously? Your favorite interview, that's right.
Oh, yeah. So everybody's different, and everyone brings something different to the fore. And I enjoy it. I love just having that rapport with people that you get from being live with them. I do give one concession. When I have politicians on, I do let them know, okay, is there a subject that, you want to mention to someone? Give me a specific idea. Because obviously they're coming on to promote something usually. And I want the public to know what's going on.
Right.
Then everything else is on me. And I keep a rule that, especially for politicians, if there's a specific bill that I am going to bring up, I tell them at least 24 hours beforehand. Nobody ever walks onto the show and is a gotcha. They know that something about bill number, whatever it is going to be brought up, and I'm going to be talking about it. They don't know what the question is. They just know, okay, you better be up on that bill because I'm going to bring up a question on it. With that said, the best interview I've had would probably be, surprisingly for most people, Dan Prokhorek. It's an interview I had. Dan's a local singer. He's an artist. Band. He has a couple of bands. And I've known him for many years. Dan's a unique guy. He's definitely not part of the political party system. Dan? You have.
Yes. I know who you're talking about now, yes.
And, on your 21st birthday. You met him.
A couple days ago, yes.
Yeah, and that was Dan.
Yes.
And we have conversations like that. And so we had an hour and a half with him, a regular person, just a regular, not political, not in any party. He's outside of that. If anything, I'd say he's probably libertarian. Great conversation, challenged a lot of the things I believe, challenged a lot of the things that were going on in the news. And it was really fun because he's just a regular person. I love talking to regular people. Jason and Bing, when he calls in, I love hearing regular people say, okay, here's a different take on that. Probably of politicians, of the politicians I've had a chance to interview, and I missed doing one with President Trump, although I did get cleared to cover him. I didn't get to interview him. The best would probably be Larry Sharp. I've had several meetings. I've had several.
And you've been on his show too.
Yeah, I've been on. He invited me to his show. He's been on my show. Every time we talk, there's at least an hour beforehand or afterwards that people don't get to see of us continuing the conversation.
Right.
We will speak. The very first time I met Larry, it was when he was running for governor, and he came in. He last minute took the booking, came on in, promised me that I'd have 20 minutes. That's about it. So 20 minutes to be with you. I was like, okay, cool. We'll make the most of it. 20-minute mark came up. I'm like, I'm looking over at his people. I'm like, are we good? Can we keep going? They're like, yeah, keep going. Larry's like, no, we got time. We will make this. As it wound up, we did an hour and a half. And the only reason we stopped was because he had to be at another event and he had to fly. We were talking forever. I love talking with Larry because we're very similar in age. We're both Marines. We're both from the Bronx, actually very close to each other, where we both grew up and live in the Bronx. And I love being on the show. I look forward to being back on there again. We have some great conversations. I love talking to Larry.
That's good. Yeah, I love watching whenever you have him on or you're on his show. It's
and
always
he's a libertarian.
Yeah.
And he does, oh boy, does he comes at me for being a Republican every time. Which I love it.
Now, you talked about, politicians. Mm-hmm. You yourself have ran for office in the past, and you're currently running. Why? So, for those who don't remember, maybe not, but you ran for Congress.
Yes, I did.
Yeah. Do you want to talk to, why did you even decide to run for Congress in the first place?
When was that? That was 2016.
No,
it was 2014.
It was 2014,
Yep.
So I say it wasn't 2016.
Spent a year running for Congress, which a lot of people thought was a very odd thing to do.
Including me.
Most people. You're not rich. You're not a member of someone's political family. You don't have a business making millions of dollars. Why are you running for office? And the answer is because of all those reasons. Those aren't reasons why anyone should be running for an elected office of any level. Yet we expect that out of people. You must be rich. No. Well, you must be politically connected. Actually, probably the opposite for a lot of my career. People get pissed off at me in all the parties on a regular basis because I stand by my principles. I stand by my ethics. And I don't care what the party line may say. I believe this is what I believe, and I'm not going to violate that. And in 2013, looking at Richard Hanna and looking at his career, having covered him to a certain extent in 2012, when he was facing a couple of challengers, seeing what he had changed from in 2010 to that point, he's not a Republican. Now, sadly, Richard Hanna has passed away, and I do give my condolences to his family. Richard and I had differences politically, but he was a father, a good father to everything I know of, a pleasant man when I spoke with him in person, and he wasn't the worst politician we've ever had elected, but he wasn't a Republican.
No.
I said that live. I said that to his face. I will say it here, though I do respect that he did the work he did. And so I challenged him, and I spent a year. And at first, everyone thought it was a big joke. And at the end of it, they were terrified that I was going to break through on the mainstream and suddenly get $50,000 and win it, because he was a weak candidate. And as we saw at the end of his career, he was somewhat disgraced, and he bowed out. And Claudia Tenney, in 2014, I stepped out of the race because she was a better candidate. She had more backing, she had more money, she was better known, had 80-90% of the same values as I did on all the critical issues. And so I backed her because she was the better candidate and was promoting the issues I was promoting. And she got within 2,000 votes in the space of 2 months of a race, she got within 2,000 votes. Don't you know, 2016, she came out and won.
Yeah.
So I think it was a very successful run.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm running for...
I was about to bring that up. Well, you're running for legislature now.
Yeah, the Broome County Legislature District 13.
Do you want to talk about why you decided to run for that race?
Yeah, a couple of things. One, term limits. My opponent, a gentleman named Bob Wessler. By the way, I know Bob Wessler. In fact, I know pretty much every politician in over 8 counties of New York and in D.C. in both parties. So I've known Bob for a couple of years, ran into him more than know him. And always pleasant with me. No real issues. But I was noticing that in the last election, he had no opponent.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking this year, and I was like, wait a minute, why does he have no opponent? Is he that good? Because I couldn't think of anything that he had done. And I follow everybody, especially locally. I follow everybody.
Yeah.
And I've seen him at events, but I've never actually heard him say anything. I started looking into it. He's done nothing. Now, he's been in city council, he's been in the legislature, but he hasn't actually done anything. He doesn't talk to constituents. I've never once seen him in my neighborhood talking to me or any of my neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
I don't agree with that. I think anyone should be challenged. No one should go unopposed, but more importantly, there should be a reason for it. And the reason, besides the fact that he's been in too long and is not effective, I mean, that's a big thing. I'm angry with Anthony Brindisi, who I also know for many years. Actually, know Anthony better. But Anthony is ineffective. I can't stand that. I don't care what party you're in. It was one of the things I had against Richard. He wasn't being effective. That's why he had to go. I agree with that with Bob Wessler. He's not effective. I can't stand that in any level of politics, and that person has to go. Mm-hmm. Now, the fact that I actually have things that I think I can offer is the thing that cemented it. It said, you know, can I do that job? It's not enough to say, oh, he's been here too long, he's not effective. Should we, we should get someone else. It's like, well, do you have something to offer? And the answer is yes, I do. So that's why I ran.
Yeah. And I know, tying this into one of the most recent stories that came out, one of the big things that you've talked about is being against the defund the police movement.
Yeah.
Which Bob Wessler has on, Facebook online shown that he has supported defunding the police.
Apparently, yes. I've got I got actual screenshots of it. I've talked about it before.
We have evidence, Yep. And I know something just came out about one of our local reporters, John Solak, Independent News Media. Would you call him that?
No.
No? What would you call John?
John's a concerned citizen.
Perfect way to put it.
Yeah.
He was just on Twitter. He posted about being attacked recently. And we're going to play that video for you right here.
Oh, you're putting sound on it?
Mm-hmm.
Why are you coming towards me? I wasn't coming towards them.
Here, keep going. Keep going. You gotta document everything. We gotta document everything. I don't care if you're recording. Keep going. You don't want to incite.
This is a public street, sir. I'm not harassing you. You're depriving me of my constitutional rights, sir. Why are you following me then if you don't feel safe? Huh? Do you know my medical history? I'm a heart patient, if you want to know. Why don't you ask Andrew Cuomo and Anthony Fauci why they don't wear masks?
And the video goes on for another minute.
Is that the one where he is already attacked, or is that the one before he gets attacked?
I believe this was right after.
Okay.
Yeah.
So to put it in context, because I've seen that clip before, and I also saw the one before it. In our local region, Southern Tier, there's a couple of far left fringe groups called Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, otherwise known as PLOT. There's Black Lives Matters, which are essentially the same people with slightly different leadership. And there's a couple of other organizations, Indivisible New York, Citizen Actions, a couple of others, that are basically all the same people. They are extremists. They're fringe of the actual Democratic Party, but they have very loud voices. So they sound like they have a lot of importance. They really don't. They're led by one of the people leading them is a gentleman by the name of Messiah Andrews. He allegedly, and actually I just saw him admit on Facebook, and I have a screenshot of it, if he wants to bring this up, where he admits he goes by an alias of Roderick Douglas. Now, this individual is a very violent man. I've heard him personally say things that are promoting violence against people who are white and people who aren't like him. And he has a lot of rhetoric like that, that he writes and or says. And he assaulted that gentleman, John Solak. He's a 68-year-old man.
Heart patient, yeah.
And as he mentioned, a heart patient, because he was videotaping them painting Black Lives Matters on a city street. John doesn't agree with their politics. John is white. They've already had members of that organization assault John once before, and there are charges on that. Now they've gone from assaulting him and taking his phone, and now they're gone to physical assault. Mm-hmm. And if you listen to what you just played, they're talking about, well, you've already got everything you need, go away. Well, it's a public street. You don't get to decide that for someone. If someone's videotaping you in the middle of a street for an event that you're promoting for people to come down and videotape, and they're videotaping it for their own promotional efforts because they have a documentarian who is videotaping it all, then you don't get to tell someone else you can't do that. See, it's again, this is the detail that I think people need to know about, and this is what concerns me when you talk about defunding the police. The people who are asking you to defund the police don't believe in the freedom of the Constitution. They don't want you can film things if they like it. You can question things if it agrees with what they're questioning. And you don't dare come out and say you don't agree with them. And they are willing to use force, physical force, against people when they disagree with them. Now that should be terrifying to everyone. And if you want a reason why we need to maintain our police, you want to tell me if Bob Wessler wants to come out and say he supports this, please, Bob, I want you to look at the 2 times that this 68-year-old man, who is not intimidating in any format, is being attacked by people half his age physically and sent him to a hospital. You know what? Please explain to me why we need more of that and less of police. That doesn't make sense. We look across the country, everywhere we've seen people talking about defunding the police, and everywhere that it has been done, that means disband the police. It means less police, and we have seen as a result higher crime, higher violent crime, higher shootings, and higher deaths. I've already mentioned the deaths of children, which should be enough for everyone. But let's look at, don't have to look that far. New York City, 276% increase in the number of shootings, a 156% increase in the number of murders year over year because they got rid of 600 police officers. Gee, do you think we should have more defunding the police, or maybe we should take a different approach? I mean, let's improve them. I agree with that. But defund and get rid of them? No, I don't. And I don't think anyone else in the community agrees with that either.
Mm-hmm. And like you said, you've been in this game 20 plus years. Have you ever seen anything like this before? Anything where they're escalating the situation to such a degree, calling for the defund of police, attacking an elderly man on the street for filming them? Have you ever seen anything like this before, politically?
No. This is an extremism that really hasn't existed in the nation before. And I think it's partially because people were cooped up because of the imposed isolation for coronavirus, COVID-19. And so people were bottled up and wanted to get out. Mm-hmm. They were angry angry at the government, angry at COVID. They needed to lash out, and you can't. It's a virus. I mean, you can't do anything about it. And as much as some people want to blame our president or members of Congress, you can't. It's not their responsibility. Even to an extent, I can't blame Governor Cuomo in that it exists. I can blame him on the way he handled it. That's a different thing. But that anger with government, that government has taken away our rights and our freedoms and stripped our lives, actually turned us into other nations around the world and gave us the same amount of rights as other people in the world live with daily. I mean, we're talking about Venezuela, China, North Korea, Soviet Union back in the day, even today, Cuba. These people, it was very much in anger. It needed to be directed at something. Here comes George Floyd, which everyone agrees was wrong. They had protests, which is kind of odd because no one was protesting against it. But I understand it's an expression of their anger. Everyone deserves the right and the freedom to be able to protest. If you don't like Rocky Road and you like vanilla ice cream, you want to have a protest about it, go for it. That's your right as an American citizen. As long as no one is harmed, I'm all for it. But the other component was the violence, where individuals like Messiah Andrews and some of the other members of Black Lives Matters or Plot, whichever they want to call themselves, they intermingle which one they're a part of daily. When they start going with violence as their tactic to get people to do what they want, that's when we have a problem. That's when I have to say we draw the line, and that's when we say that these groups need to be stopped. And so defunding the police is never the answer in the face of aggression. Bowing down and saying, "Oh, we're going to acquiesce to you." What Chamberlain did that. How well did that work out?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And we're starting to wrap up the show here. We've been at it for an hour. I do have somewhere to go for birthday dinner, but before I go, I just personally want to thank you, Mike, for everything you've done. You're at 999 videos, right? You have made such an impact on my life as well as many others. You're a mentor figure to me. I call you whenever I need advice on something or something else, and getting to host your show is a huge honor. To see one time to change of the host one time. It's kind of different. It's a huge honor, and I just want to congratulate you personally on 999 episodes. And trying to think back, I've had so many good moments with you, Mike, over the last 3 or 4 years. I'm trying to think. I can't even think of a favorite moment. You've helped us so much, and I'm sure, all of my friends, all the people who know you just want to say thank you for the work you've done.
Well, I appreciate it. I do it. I do it because I believe in it. Mm-hmm. I think it's worthwhile.
And that's why you're running for office. That's the mark of someone truly running for office. You're not running for the money or the fame because you want to make a difference and you want to actually go out into the community and talk to people. And some politicians who are in office, like you said, Anthony Brandinski, Jason Garner, Bob Wessler, they don't want to say anything. They don't want to do anything, and they don't want to mix with people, and you're just so much different than that, which is why I love the show. And with that, I think it's a good time.
Was there any other big... you got me wondering, because you're like, I got 50 questions.
I asked quite a few questions.
Yeah, was there anything big that we left out? Like something that people were wondering about?
Most of the other ones were like small time questions. So, and I'll have more of a chance. People will ask me,
All right.
Once this goes up, people are going to continue asking me questions. So we'll have more questions coming at you.
They can always, reach us on No Soundbites Allowed or on Facebook or any of the other mediums and say, hey, but I wanted to know this. I'll be happy. I'm open story. I mean, I'm already out for 14 years I've been doing this.
I said 20 plus, but
some stuff before I got into the internet.
Timelines,
but it's a lot of time. So I'm not worried about saying if people have a question, just ask.
Oh yeah, oh definitely, I love it, and people love you too, Mike.
I love to hear that. You don't always feel it some days.
But thank you so much for watching No Soundbites Allowed. Tonight,
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock is going to be the 1,000th video.
Yeah, it's a special video set up. We made it just for 1,000. It's short, but I think it hits the mark. I hope people will like it, and I may jump on afterwards to see what the reaction is from people. Say like 8:30, but definitely I'm looking forward to people seeing that.
Remember to subscribe, and you can check out Michael Voss's website as well as his campaign website as well. So thank you again for having me host, Mike.
You're very welcome. Thank you. You did a good job, John.
Thanks, John.